Today I'd like to talk about microplastics. Mass production of plastic is only between 60 and 70 years old. In that time, though, the industry has created 8.3 billion metric tons of plastic, outpacing every other man-made material. In the entire world, only about 9% of plastic is ever recycled, and because so little is recycled, about 80% ends up in our waste management systems. With the lack of waste control, much of it ends up in our natural environment and into our waterways and soils. 8 million tons of which end up in the ocean every year. Once in the natural environment, plastic is subject to all the forces of nature, things like wind, rain, waves, breaking it down into smaller pieces, ending up as microplastics. Microplastics are particularly harmful because they are somewhat unseen and can be ingested by species in the oceans, or blown pretty much anywhere. According to NOAA, any type of plastic found that is the size of about a sesame seed or smaller is considered a microplastic. This makes it particularly hard to see, especially in the natural environment. This also makes microplastic pretty easy to distribute. In a study written and published on ScienceDirect, microplastics found in the ocean were attaching themselves to different types of phytoplankton, a major food source for many ocean species, and distributing themselves around different parts of the ocean, either via ocean currents or by sinking to the bottom of the sea. Studies have found that microplastics can have some pretty extreme hazards for people and animals around the world. In another article published on PNAS.org, the authors stated that microplastics can impair reproduction and development and alter how species function, disperse, and assemble. They also state that plastic alters gene expression, cells, and tissue, causing death and altering population size and community structure. Chemicals in plastic can interfere with hormones, especially estrogen, as well as cause mutations. In the case of microplastics, studies have found that it could take up to 6 times longer for an animal to rid it from its system. Studies have also found that chemicals such as Agent Orange that was used in the Vietnam War to destroy enemies' food supply and cover, found their way to the oceans and attached themselves to plastic debris floating out in the sea, unable to be truly rid of. The good thing is that there are many ordinances in place in much of the country's outdoor spaces. So, for example, there is a pretty hefty fine of $500 and a 30-day prison sentence, as well as a Class 2 misdemeanor on record for littering here in Colorado. Not to mention, if it's 5 pounds over 5 pounds, it's $1,000. So unfortunately, though, most of the plastic pollution around the world comes from mismanaged waste control facilities. And there really isn't much that can be done in the way of microplastics. Microplastics are already littering our planet majorly, and because of their tiny size, they are somewhat difficult to collect and study. Until proper laws and regulations are implemented, and to help prevent any further microplastic distribution, it is important to pick up any plastic seen and recycle as much as possible. When given the option, always choose to use reusable products. Earth Day shouldn't be just one day in the spring. Earth Day needs to be every day, or there won't be an Earth to celebrate on the one day of the year that we recognize the power of making a difference for the one planet we have. There is no planet B.